Greetings everyone. My name is Abhirup Sarkar and I am currently pursuing Masters in Folkloristics at the Department of Cultural and Creative Studies at Northeastern Hill University, Shillong. Before this, I completed my Masters in English Literature from Christ University, Bangalore. I would like to begin my presentation by thanking 2023 SORES Amsterdam and SSHRA for providing me with this platform to present my research. With the constantly evolving societies and therefore the anxieties, the realizing and acknowledging the different notions of individuals as well as the societies has become quite important in order to coexist peacefully. And this is why there is an important need of folklore in today's time. We will begin by discussing briefly how folklore has evolved from its earlier forms to how and what it entails today. Then we will move on briefly to touch upon why the folkloric perspective has been chosen. And then we will move on to discuss about what the work actually looks into, followed by the conclusion. Oral folklore is also known as traditional folklore, and one of the prime aspects of oral folklore is the spontaneous modification, as it depended completely on memory and passing it down the generation through orality. However, with the advent of writing systems, these lores were then frozen on the text that restricted one of the primary mediating feature of what constituted in the oral folklore, the spontaneous modification. Because the spontaneous modification is what led to different variants and versions of the same folklore or the folk narratives. Finally, with the advent of technology, not only did the acquisition of folklore became easier, much of the features that were part of the oral folklore were also revived through the technology. Although in the digital age, it's quite possible for the original folklore as well as the variants or the versions to coexist simultaneously on the same platform, which was quite difficult in case of oral folklore. Why the folkloric perspective was chosen for analysis. Now, while earlier folklore was primarily concerned with preservation of the endangered knowledge systems that were under imminent threat of disappearance owing to the constant modernization and evolution of the human societies. With time and proliferation of this field across different regions, it became important to look into the matter of folklore more holistically. That is, to continue aiding in preservation of the endangered knowledge systems while also realizing the systems that were emerging in today's time, lest it again becomes an antiquarian study in the near future. The platform selected for this work is YouTube, one of the widely accessed audio-video platform to seek information. The selection of videos was done through the search feature to pick the top most viewed channels using a private browser to avoid any viewer bias. The most viewed videos from each of these channels were picked up. Motifs are thus, in this case, considered as the fundamental elements present in the content that enables the continued consumption as well as engagement with the content. Further engaging in discussions about the content that include sharing personal experiences and opinions, including attempts to evoke artificially such experiences. Hence, transcending these narratives into a commonly shared belief narratives, which is resulting into the emergence of new digital homogeneous folk group, who believe in the paranormal. As in the case of oral narratives, the digital narratives also have these fundamental units that enable them to become magnificent enough and be a part of the daily life in the human society. And this in this work has been termed as the modification process, where the motifs or the fundamental elements have been identified from these digital narratives that enable these narratives to be a part of the human society, and thereby leading to a formation of a belief narrative network and thus a belief system itself. Now, in order, as discussed earlier, in order for a narrative to be adapted in daily life as a practice and therefore as a belief system, the narratives have to be magnified enough. They have to have a certain level, a certain impact on the psyche or on the emotions of the humans for them to be able to turn into belief systems. And therefore, these narratives, just like in case of the oral narratives, employ certain elements to magnify the narratives that they are sharing. To begin with, the video titles themselves. They are exaggerating and magnified in order to capture the viewer's attention in the first place. Then we have the textual prompts in the video which use the rewind and prompt technique, which orient the viewer's perception of viewing the video through their sensory organs. Then the other motif is grayscaling, where a deliberate grayscaling of certain sections or segments of the video or the investigations is done to restrict the viewer's spectrum of viewership or viewing. We also have electronic devices which are extensively used in every single paranormal investigation. Now, these electronic devices are used to capture the extrasensory activities in order to validate the existence of the paranormal, which goes a long way to prove or to validate the truthfulness or authenticity of these entities for the viewer, thereby enhancing the chances of these narratives to become a part of the belief system. We also have psychic mediums as the motif, where a psychic medium is employed to validate the proof that has been gathered through the electronic devices. Now, this gives a doubly layered authenticity to the entire narrative, where a human being is validating what has already been captured through an electronic device. So this is a conjunction between the olden tradition and the modern technology, as even in the olden traditions, the tribes or the folk groups used to have seers or psychic mediums who used to be able to see things that are beyond the normal physical perception of a human being. We also have listicles as a motif here, because the spaces or the locations that are selected by these paranormal investigations depend upon what or how much popularity do they enjoy in the current digital folklore. We have background narratives, which are elaborate descriptions of the background of the place as well as the person related to it, that establish the meaning, that establish the context for the viewer in the background of a real historical event, thereby again reinforcing the authenticity of the narrative. We have background music as a motif, which enhances the viewer's anticipation and anxieties, as there is a constant, imminent expectation of paranormal or an extrasensory activity to happen in the video, which will validate the viewer's experience and therefore their belief in the paranormal. And finally, we have the comments as a motif, because a belief system only sustains upon regular practice, and a practice only sustains upon regular discussions. Now, these videos have shared experiences, anecdotes, past experiences, intention to experience these things in the future, or requests to have more content that can validate such experiences. Two things happen with the diabolical form of literature or belief systems. One, For those who had a sincere faith in such narratives, the text froze the ways in which they can interact with the diabolical or with the unknown, and with the negative impact that it was having on the society. Much of these texts were abridged for the general public, and only certain sections or abridged versions were made available to the public. Further, for those who did not have a sincere faith in such a belief system or in such narratives, either turned to rationality in order to rebuke such belief systems, claiming them to be false and make believe, or merely consumed them for entertainment purposes. It is the second case that has led to the creation of the entire genre that we know today as the paranormal. The freedom of creation, modification, mediation, and preservation of the different formats of folklore have aided in formation of newer genres of folklore as well as newer folk groups. These folk groups are formed based on the revelations of personal experiences and anecdotes that were previously unexplored and avoided owing to the taboos and fears attached to this genre of narratives and thereby the beliefs and the belief systems. They are also formed based on the validation, the mutual exchange of validation of the beliefs through lived experiences in the preternatural. The digital media also establishes a much larger, homogeneous digital folk group that transcends the earlier boundaries of religion, caste, ethnicity, race, geographical limitations, etc., while still preserving all the identities. The formation of folk groups, therefore, do not only identify through the narratives that were previously considered as taboo, but also willingly contribute in order to create and form such narratives either through lived experiences as well as through imaginations. Therefore, while in olden times it took a lot of effort, time, as well as a lot of resources in order to establish a folk group, let alone a belief system, with the advent of the digital world and the digital means of transmission of folklore, it has become much simpler, much easier to formulate these folk groups and thereby to transmit and preserve folk narratives of different genres. The following table shows the consistent increase in the number of motion pictures that were produced throughout the years which belong to the genre of the paranormal or horror. The following image is from one of the channels selected and one of the videos from one of the channels selected for analysis, which highlights how the textual prompts are used in order to orient the viewer's perception. As can be seen in this image as well as in the previous image, the video has been grayscaled in order to restrict the viewer's perception in a particular monochromatic spectrum of viewership. This image shows a text that was written by one of the psychic mediums in one of the videos who is trying to establish that they have written the word chant much earlier than the investigators actually were able to hear the same word on their electronic device. These videos have a tendency to go by the amount of fame a particular place or a particular location has. In this particular video, as can be seen, the background narrative revolving around the location of the place is being shared by the tenant himself. The chat sections of these videos are not only extremely positive and driven by enthusiasm, but also include a lot of anecdotes and shared experiences. Thus, In terms of the paranormal belief system that is slowly and steadily emerging as a strong belief system of the urban folk, these digital content, are contributing strongly to the creation of the homogeneous folk group who believe in the paranormal narratives, who have personal experiences to share about the paranormal narratives, and realizing these belief systems will not only aid in understanding how the human psyche functions in today's time, but also will probably aid to a much better and sustainable coexistence in the near future. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I hope you have a great time ahead.